Welcome to video 9 in my part 3 Java MTA course. In this one we're going to be talking about data transformation. So as always I'm going to go over the key information as quickly as possible and then give you some questions to try and test the knowledge that we've just learnt. In the MTA exam you will be expected to follow how data changes as it goes through. So you must have a good understanding of how the following concepts work for data transformation. So we're going to go down the list very quickly. So the first one, we've got the post increment. Now the plus means add by 1 or increment by 1. The minus means increment or take away by 1. So if we look at an example here, we've got two variables. The first variable number 1 and it's assigned the value 1. And then what's happening here is we're doing the post increment, but because it's at the end, what this means is we are going to assign number 1 to the value first, and then we're going to increment. So we're going to increment after or post the assignment. So if we look at the outputs, number 2 will be 1 because it's assigned that 1 value from number 1, and then number 1 will be 2 because after it's been assigned it will be incremented by 1. And it's the same thing except the same method or the process with the double takeaway. That means instead of adding by 1 it's taken away by 1. So we'll explain a little bit more because I'll be using that in the next example. So if you see it here, the pre one, what this means is it's very similar except for here, before it's assigned, pre-assignment, it's taking away or adding. So in this one, we create the same value 1. We're saying take 1 away from that value and then assign it. So we're going to do the taking away pre-assignment. And so if we look here, number 2 would be 0 because 1 take away 1 equals 0, and number 1 would be 0 because again 1 take away 1 will be 0, and that would be the output. Also, you need to not get too worried when you see a letter within a number. So what this is doing is just telling the computer that is a float. So sometimes you'll see a number like this one and the computer doesn't know if you want to store it in a double or a float value, and so when you see the F, this is just informing the computer that it is a float and you're just converting it into that. So don't be too worried in the exam if you start seeing an F in the in a number or a float or a double value. Again with the D, this again telling the computer that it's a double. So again, if you're saying 4.5, this means the computer's just going to store it in a double. And again, we're just talking about it very quickly so that when you see these letters within code in the MTA exam, it doesn't disturb your concentration. You're able to kind of follow the code. And the last thing here, we've got the character value. So usually, the character value means it's supposed to display a letter. Now, what you can do is you can add a number in there, and what that returns, or what that refers to, is the ASCII value. So you don't have to learn all of these values and what letters, but they might give you a question where they'll say, if you see letter 1, what will be displayed, an error 78 or a letter, then it means that you need to be able to point to the fact that you are able to, in a char data type, input a number and it will refer to a letter. So for example, I've put 78, 76 and 80, and that's just going to output NLP. Again, you don't need to know the actual numbers that link up to the letters, but you do need to know that you can input a number value for the char character data. Okay, so we've talked about the key points very quickly. Now let's look at some questions that you might encounter. So what I've got here is I've got some pieces of code. What I would like you to do is just go through the questions, pause the video and see how many you can answer. So hopefully you've paused the video. Let's go through them. So what would be displayed if we executed the first piece of code? So what's happening here is that we're adding 5, and then we're going to add 10 to that 5. So the first one would be 15. So the reason why this is not going to be applied to our equation is the fact that this is post assignment. So we're going to assign it first, and then we're going to increment that. So after this assignment's been done, that number 1 will be 6, but it won't affect the equation. Number 2, if we look at this one, so again we've got number 1. So if we look here, this will be now number 1 will be 6 because it's incrementing that, and it would also be 6. Number 2 will be 6 because remember we're incrementing that or adding 1 to that before we assign it. And then if we look at here, we're adding it again, that's pre, so number 1 will be now 7, and we're going to be adding 2 to that, so that's 13. So if we look at here, the answer will be 13. Next one, again we're having 5, so this is pre-assignment, so number 1 will be 4, and so we're saying 4 times 3, that's 12, so the output will be 12. No, because what we're doing is we're outputting number 1, not number 2, so you have to be careful of that. So again, that output will be 4. If we look at the next one, we've got a double now. So again, we're saying we've got that double, and then we're converting it to a float, but don't worry because it's not really going to affect anything. So again, we're just saying minus, we're saying from that 5 minus 3, which will be 2. And then again, we're converting it back to a double. So that's saying we'll times that by 10. So that will be 20. So the answer there will be 20. And again, this is the kind of stuff that they'll show up in the exam with the F and D. They're just trying to make sure that you don't get worked up about the 3F and then make a mistake. Again, it's just converting that to a float, converting that to a double, and it's just like an extra barrier that you'll have to kind of go across while working out that equation. And number 5, what would be displayed? And this is very common. So you've got the number there with the character data type, and then this will be a multiple choice question. So do remember in the MTA exam, they're all multiple choice. And of course, the answer would be it's a letter or symbol. So it'll be a B. So hopefully you got all of them right. So if you feel confident that you're able to explain the difference between A++ and A-, I think you've got a good understanding of what we've covered today. If you can explain the difference between the pre-increment and the post-increment and how it affects the values if you're assigning, then I think you've got an even better one. And if you're able to start kind of creating some code that uses A++ and ++A, and then running it, then I think you're ready for that MTA exam for this concept. So again, if you feel that this video was useful, please like it. If you would like to be notified when more mock exams come online for my channel, please subscribe. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.